Nice to be here, and thank you very much for your time also. And so, talking about the new challenges, especially in terms of IIoT and Industry 4.0 in industries, and there are a lot of many industries already quite adopted this technology, and especially those with the background of pharmaceutical industry and some petrochemical industries, some chemical factories, and so they have already incorporated this Industry 4.0 and which is mainly based in European countries, and those companies which is based in North American region, and some companies in the Asian region, which is basically the parenting organizations. So already adopted this digital transformation, and because this is not new, and this has been going on since almost like in the past 5 years. And so having said that, and then there are some challenges when we talk about especially some sectors of the industry. So particularly on the oil and gas, and so not only in particular country or continent, and throughout the worldwide, the adoption of Industry 4.0 and as well as IIoT in the oil and gas industry, which is taking in a very slow phase. I think probably the reason could be, and so the one is the scale of the industry is so huge, and even actually when we talk about even the operation and then the plant area is substantially higher in oil and gas industries compared to pharmaceutical or other industries, where it is actually the surface area is smaller, and then of course the operating location is actually confined to a small area. So there are some challenges in terms of, let's say, especially if you want to use a wireless method or maybe in a mobile phone technology or tablet technology in oil and gas industry. And one thing is actually the industry has to have a basic infrastructure, and especially the company-wide wireless network coverage in the proper plant, and then or maybe the LTE coverage. And so that is the first challenge, of course. So it is actually some plants already getting adapted to this, but then of course in a general terms, I think oil and gas industry is actually it's because of some constraints, and then so they need to adopt this one first. So which means basically they need to put the backbone structure of all the connectivity and all the other structures in place in order to utilize this particular technology. So and then the second phase is actually is also the adaptation level, and so which part actually it is going to be useful when using Industry 4.0 or IIoT. And for example, the other industries in pharmaceutical, the production area is so small, and of course the machine is complex and then concentrated in a very specific place, and maybe a conveyor belt system and things like that, and then it is much easier to adopt the technology. But whereas in oil and gas, and then the location is so large, and then first we need to find out which particular location, and then this particular technology will bring the benefit, and that needs to be identified by the customer in the first place, and that takes some time. And it is already happening, but then of course it takes more time compared to the other type of industry. And the third one is actually, of course, the safety and security. And so when we talk about the large scale installations, and especially open atmosphere outdoor installations, and so safety and security of the complete plant, and then when we adopt the Industry 4.0, which means when all the devices are connected in a network manner, either by wired or wireless, and it becomes much more important and to pay more attention to the safety and security. So these are some of the challenges which at the moment actually need to be addressed, and when we talk about oil and gas industry and how do we apply this Industry 4.0 and IIoT technology. Yeah, I mean, in terms of technology, it is available, and so different continents have defined how do we do this digital technologies. In the European context, actually, they come out with the term called Industry 4.0. In the North American term, they call it IIoT, and which is used in specific industries. But of course, the approach is actually could be slightly different, but then the end result or the end focus is almost the same. So they want to do the process, or they want to do all the type of conversion into a digital way. So this is the basic idea behind. And of course, there are many different technologies already adopted, and then one of them is actually the wireless technology, which is already there. Cloud computing is another way of achieving the digital transformation, improve the production process, make the production process into smart production process, and make the products much more smarter, and then the connectivity of the products is much more smarter. So these backbone structures are already happening in one way or another. So for example, in the devices, actually we have many technologies like a field bus, and so in a kind of bus technology, which is interconnecting many devices in a single cable system, for example, or maybe certain applications we we also use a wireless way of extracting the information from the devices itself, or even converting a simple device into a IoT compatible device by putting some wireless adapters. And so this thing is happening. But of course, when the technology evolve and then when it is moving towards much more high speed and then much more capable type of networks, for example, 5G in the future, and of course, there might be some backbone structure changes required. And of course, the structure would be similar. And then in terms of how we interpret the data, because when we talk about 5G, the amount of data what we can transfer is going to be huge. And so how we are going to use this data. So how do we properly use this big data analytics, for example. So that is going to be one of the key challenge. And so here all the different divisions will work together. For example, the production floor will transmit enormous amount of data to the central location, and then after that the IT team together with the control system engineers will take over to analyze the amount of big data, and then by using certain proven methods and then or maybe a newly invented method in order to properly utilize the new technology. How do we harvest the advantages offered by the 5G network, for example. And AI is another field. It's already started shaping in industries. And for example, artificial intelligence is actually quite widely used in most of the pharma applications. And then because most of the time they use the tablet products or mobile products, and then they put the AR or augmented reality type of applications into that, and which means the technician is able to visualize what is happening behind the machine. So far is only working based on paper or some kind of document, but now is using a kind of digital system where he is able to see what is exactly happening, how actually the process has been happening by using some 3D model. So a lot of such companies are already using this type of technology. But then of course in oil and gas industry, and then we have to see that it is also a huge potential, especially for the 5G and AI technology, because for example, if you want to analyze the heat signature or maybe a large tank, for example, what is happening inside and then what is the flow level, what is the pressure level. So you can use this technology to visualize and so artificially. And so instead of working on a paper, and then it's much more advantageous when we use this artificial intelligence and huge amount of data by 5G network or IIoT concept. So that is going to be one of the key aspects of this technology development in this area. The operators in the first place actually need to be properly trained. So this is going to be slightly different way of doing instrumentation compared to the traditional way of doing. So traditionally the operators would simply carry certain type of multimeters and basic measuring equipments or servicing equipments in order to do the installation, commissioning, or even do some kind of servicing or troubleshooting. And when we move into a completely IoT based or industry 4.0 based, and then so the way how we do things will be slightly changed. So everything is going to be based on some digital principle. So the technician need to understand, so what is the basic difference between the conventional way of doing things and the digital way of doing things. So they need to understand the basic difference, and then they need to adapt to the technology. So which means basically they need to have some kind of understanding or training. So that is one of the key requirement here. And once it is done, and then which is happening most of the industries, the workers are getting trained for the next level of industrial revolution. And so once it is done, and then of course the technician would be able to use and properly the amount of the data what they are collecting and the way they are doing things and stuff like that. And it is not going to be very different. And then now most of the most of the people or those people working in the production floor or any type of industry, in the private life they have been using all the gadgets, mobile phones or tablets or smartwatch or anything like that. So they know that actually how to extract the data, how to use the mobile phones, how to use the tablet, and what is the smartwatch is used for, and for multiple purposes. And so now the using that particular device is not an issue at all. So they already kind of trained. But when we want to put them into the industrial scale, and then how do we properly use them? How do we use them in a secure format? And those kind of information need to be passed on to the end user. So once it is properly done, and of course the amount of benefits is going to be enormous for both technicians or people working at the production floor, and also to the management, because they're going to see the cost benefit and the production efficiency going to increase. It is one of the wonderful experience for me also, and so especially actually to see that the wide range of people coming from different industries, and people come from petrochemical, people coming from vendor side, and valve manufacturer, and also the tablet manufacturers, mobile phone manufacturers, and also how to put the system together. That is more important. So now we have different people talking about different technology, and then people talk about how do we do the safety system, and then so people talk about how do we use the digital technology in the different parts of the plant. So now I think people have tend to get more information, not from a specific vendor, but by a group of vendors, and then they get more idea, and then so they can bring back definitely back to their management to suggest some better ideas. So what they have learned or what they have heard from the conference. So I think it's one of the very good approach to educate the people and to share the information that is more important on a common platform. So the industry experts join together on a common platform, and so there may be competitors out there in the world, but then of course they come back to share the common platform and then share the information, and then what is the technology in the future, and then how it is going to benefit for the end user. So I think it is benefiting both the parties, and then whoever participating in terms of end user, and then also whoever coming from the vendor side, and they exchange information. And not only that, and we also tend to get more user. We are able to share the experience with from one industry to the other, and then they also benefit for this kind of knowledge sharing. So that is also very important. I think all in all, I think it's one of the very good platform, and very happy to be here. And then even actually I see the way of people interacting. It is much more giving a lot of energy, and then also more opportunity in both sides.